Please be seated as our prelude will begin now. You just did it. Oh, I'm standing out front. Well, so we will do announcements now. Welcome, everyone, to our multi-platform service for the Unitarian Church of Staten Island. We're so grateful to have you join us. For those joining us in person, it is wonderful to have you with us. You're invited to join us in the parish hall for hospitality after the service. For those joining us online, we send special greetings to you. We hope you take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat box. And after the service, you are all invited to a virtual coffee hour. A reminder that our visiting minister, Ember Kelley, has regular office hours on Saturday from 9 to 1. To schedule a meeting, please email Ember at minister@uucsi.org. See the weekly newsletter for more information. Weekly gatherings include our women's group via Zoom, held every Tuesday from 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. See Kathy Santo for information. The men of the church gather via Zoom every other Monday evening. See Tom Saluga for information. There will be a membership meeting next Sunday after service at 12:30. That's Sunday, April 21st, typically held in the vestry. Please look in your order of service for an announcement about a special Family and Faith Day that's being held on May 4th at 5:30 at the Ferryhawk Stadium. We're hoping to go as a congregation for those who are interested in attending a Ferryhawks game. It's $13 per ticket. Please support our social media outreach. Please like and share our weekly posts on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, all of our services are on YouTube. For those joining in person, we gently remind you to please silence your mobile devices at this time. And now let us prepare for this morning's service.
Good morning. My name is Ember Kelley. I use she and her pronouns, and I am the visiting minister here at the Unitarian Church of Staten Island. It's good to be with you all today as I figure out where exactly this mic should be placed. Our opening words today come from Kwame Ture. When you see people call themselves revolutionary, always talking about destroying, 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 but never talking about building or creating, they are not revolutionary. They do not understand the first thing about revolution. It's creating.
I invite you to join me in lighting our chalice. You can find the words to the affirmation in our order of service. In the search for truth and the spirit of love, we unite in worship and fellowship. As an extension of lighting our chalice, we'll take a moment to light 3 candles for some of those who have recently been affected by police brutality, knowing that we cannot cover all of the names of those affected. We light a candle for the life of Bill Osterholt. We light a candle for the life of John Piazza. We light a candle for the life of Evett Michelle Tower. May these lights be a symbol of our commitment to continue the work of racial justice and to proclaim that Black lives matter. Please join us now in singing hymn number 346 from the gray hymnal, Come Sing a Song with Me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. It's now time for the new member ceremony. So pull out your new member ceremony from your order of service. On behalf of the membership committee of the Unitarian Church of Staten Island, of which I am an outgoing co-chair, I ask that Megan Walsh, who I think just arrived, and Chris Lopez join me here on the chancel for the new member ceremony. I also ask that the current co-chairs of the membership committee come up and join me here as well. Yeah, we're going to have a crowd up here.
Big crowd.
Do I need the hand mic is the question. You got it. All right. Oh. All right, so you're going to do the... All right. We at the Unitarian Church of Staten Island welcome you as new members of our community this morning. You have come to worship, play, work, and grow among us. Ours is a free church. We have no creeds, and you're free to bring your ideas and beliefs to share with others. I invite you to join with us in the religious search for meaning and purpose in life, informed by our individual beliefs and the traditions of Unitarian Universalism. We offer you each a flower or two that represents the beauty of friendship. We offer you this bread, which is actually a brownie. Bread in my book. The best bread, exactly. We offer you these seeds, and since neither of you have a garden, these are edible, that represent the future and the promise of growth in the search for truth. Finally, we offer a copy of Our Chosen Faith to Megan, while noting that Chris, who was formerly a member of the Santa Barbara Union Church, already has a copy, and will be picking out another book from the UUA bookshop. Is a bookmark for you.
So you will be pledging and signing our membership book this morning. I invite you to celebrate that commitment in worship. In this gathering, we lift up our voices in shared song. We bring ourselves before the sacred and the unknown in silence and in speech. We search together for meaning and truth in life, and we share the joys and sorrows of our lives with one another. Joining the Unitarian Church of Staten Island means being part of this gathered community, speaking out on the future of our congregation, offering and receiving the gifts of the Spirit, supporting others, and being supported in return. If you will join us in this mission and the work, say, I will.
I will.
I will.
Will the members of the congregation please rise as you are able, in spirit or in body, and respond with the words printed in your order of service insert.
We receive you with open hands and hearts. As you join us, we once again renew our own commitment to this religious community. We are proud and happy to have you among us. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
You do have an opportunity to speak if either one of you would like to say anything.
But also no pressure if you don't want to.
Right, so no pressure if you don't want to. You okay?
Yes. Thank you for the hospitality that you showed me and us when we arrived at this church in the beginning. And I'm glad to be able to join your church from this point onward. Thank you.
Thank you.
We got a bag for you, Chris?
Oh, make it easier to hold everything.
Tell him moving everything along.
First thing into you do.
Okay, now time for joys and sorrows. Yes. Okay, good. Now it's the time in our service for joys and sorrows. If you're visiting us for the first time, this is the time when you can introduce yourself. For those who are gathering in person, we invite you to raise your hand and then stand where you are seated. I'll give you the microphone to share your joy or sorrow. We invite you to share what is in your heart. For those joining us online, we invite you to type into the chat your joys and sorrows, and Sally will read them aloud. We invite you to share what is in your heart. Did anyone hear me now? Did you guys hear him? Seems a little loud. Everyone speaks softly. You guys have your hands up here? Or just to say, did you have your hands up or just to say you could hear? Okay.
Hi, I'm Juliet, and last Sunday I wasn't here, but I did something that brought me so much joy I had to share it, which was we cleaned out the shed, which we've never done since we bought the house, I don't know how many years ago. So, I mean, it just looked like, you know, like the aftermath of a hurricane. Everything just piled up. Took everything out, threw a bunch of stuff away, put stuff in the recycling, organized everything, cleaned it. And the other thing that brought me a lot of joy is that we had a power washer and like a leaf blower, which I don't know anything about this, never going to use it. But I contacted La Colmena and I said, do you think anybody could use these? And for people who don't know, La Colmena is the migrant assistance organization. They help people work and stuff. So somebody came by, looked at the items and took them. So that also brought me a lot of joy that instead of just throwing it in the trash, it was actually useful to somebody. So that is doing this job is a source of ongoing joy. So I'm really happy and just really happy that it was done.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Chris. So I have two joys to talk about today. The first was when I walked by the little free food pantry and saw that it was so full. It made me very, very happy. And I want to share with everybody, if you haven't taken our handy-dandy flyer for the little free food pantry, which, you know, if we haven't put it out online yet, we will, so you can grab it and share it and send it out to folks. It was designed by our very own Robin Lakmanda, for which we have a lot of gratitude and joy as well. I've sent it out to other organizations that do food things, so maybe they'll keep us on their list of things, locations maybe to share some items. So, but hopefully we'll get this to everybody electronically so you can take it and share it among your friends and family. And then the other quickie thing I wanted to say, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, for those of you who've been following how, you know, committee within the church has been looking to really grab our history so that we can know it better and promote it more for all sorts of positive ways. We got word from New York Landmarks Conservancy that they are going to include us in their Sacred Sites tour, and that's going to be on May 18th, time to be determined by hopefully us. And I'll speak more about that later because we got some work cut out for us as we prepare for this. But this is like a really big deal, folks. So I'm really happy.
Don't just raise your hand.
Hi, I'm Sally, and in the chat, Maureen says she is so excited to see Carolyn Clark back at church. Welcome back! And she wishes that she was here to give you a big hug. And she also sees from home Marge Becker, and she wants to greet you. You get a special shout out. You must be special. Anyway, my joy is that I am going to go to Washington, D.C. and raise some hell this week in Congress with something like 40 different organizations are going to Congress to try to push them to do something about what's happening in Gaza. And I'm just really proud to be part of that.
Thank you for sharing your joys and sorrows with us. Oh, okay. Hello.
I'm Betsy Wilson. I used to come here all the time. Thanks to Virginia Allen, who saw me on Facebook and suggested I come back over here, that some of my friends would be glad to see me. So I'm glad to be here. My sorrow is that I buried my son Nicholas in September. He had a fast-moving cancer. He was here in the Sunday school, and I laid him to rest next to his sister in the cemetery by Clove Road. So that's what's happened. Thanks.
Welcome back, and thank you for those words about your children. And now, is there anybody else? Going on. Thank you for sharing your joys and sorrows with us, and for those held silently in your hearts. We will now pause for meditation. I will offer a prompt to focus your meditation and then ring the bell. At that point, I invite you to begin the meditation with 3 deep breaths. After a few minutes, I will ring the bell again to mark the end of our time. Today's prompt is by Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Because love is an act of courage, not of fear, love is a commitment to others. No matter where the oppressed are found, the act of love is commitment to their cause, the cause of liberation.
So now we enter into our time for all ages, which to not put a spotlight solely on our young people, we will include all ages in sharing a reflection. This is a chance for you to consider a question and your answer to that question. So our question today is, what does community mean to you? Is anyone interested in sharing what community means to you?
It means unity, it means value, it means friendship, relationship, even family.
What does community mean to you? Any young voices want to share that I'm gonna, just stare down in guilt into answering?
It means a shared experience with other beings that encourages growth and helping each other out.
Community is a group of people that helps each other grow spiritually.
Excellent, thanks. God.
Yeah, I think a big part of community is empathy and seeing yourself in others and identifying that other people have hopes and fears, wants and dreams and things like that, and just understanding that you're equals.
Got lots of hands now.
Hi, I think I got a big lesson in community during the COVID isolation. Because at first, well, I've always been kind of feeling like I don't have any social skills and being kind of asocial and shrinking away from people. So when the isolation first started, I'm like, good, nobody will bother me. But I was so wrong. After a couple of months into it, I realized I was in a really deep depression. I hadn't seen people. My daughter would come by once a week, and we talked on the phone every day. It wasn't total isolation. But coming out into the community again, seeing friends, even just walking my dog through the neighborhood and saying hello to people had such an elevating effect on my mood. And then coming here is, the icing on top.
Thanks for sharing.
Well, thanks to COVID and Zoom, I've discovered that community can be virtual as well as actual physical. And I found some delightful communities to be a part of online. And I've also felt very much a part of several communities locally where people can see each other and take a walk or whatever. And of course, this feels very much like a community too. And I think the way people identify themselves as part of a community is when you have common values and concerns, and also enthusiasms. And I think any good community feels energized through creativity.
Well, folks, these are some great answers. I guess I'll let one more.
A community shares something together.
No, these are great. And I also invite you to maybe consider talking over this topic over some coffee and treats after service during hospitality time. Now, I believe we're inviting up our Committee on Shared Ministry to share with us. And you will also, for this part of the service, find in your order of service the Covenant of Respectful Relations.
Maybe you want to be here.
Yeah, come on, Randy. Whole team.
Pages.
Okay.
The Committee on Shared Ministry has been reestablished under the guidance of Visiting Minister Ember Kelley. The committee works to ensure that the congregation can live within its covenant of respectful relations and, if necessary, enforce the policy on disruptive behavior. In order to achieve its goals, please feel free to reach out to any of the committee members, who are myself, Ben Maxwell, Sarah Dolinar, and Randy Leeson. The Committee on Shared Ministry is a super committee in that it involves itself in the workings of every aspect of congregational life. We strive to ensure that members feel comfortable within their interactions and that all in our broader community have a safe space to share their spiritual journeys while knowing their input and contributions to the congregation are valued. You're each provided a copy of the Covenant on Respectful Relations with your order of service this morning. The covenant is important to maintaining the health of this religious community, and it is vital that we know what it says so that it can guide us in all that we do in and for this church. Ember will be delivering a sermon in May to underscore the importance of the covenant and elaborate on how it guides us. Also, of course, please feel free to reach out to her regarding these topics or schedule a meeting during office hours, Saturdays 9 to 1. Now, in order to familiarize all of us with the covenant, I ask that we please stand as you are able and read the covenant out loud together. Thank you. 1, we practice manners and civility in our membership. We act as stewards of our sacred spaces. 2, we value openness in our communications and decision-making. We accept conflict in our community as inevitable and healthy. We are guided by the principle that properly managed conflict between people in respectful relation to each other can be a positive force for creativity, growth, and enrichment. Our task is to find appropriate ways to express and resolve our conflicts. We direct controversial, congregational related communications through appropriate channels. The minister and committee on shared ministry can provide information and facilitate process. We strive to focus on issues and behaviors, not on people and personalities.
Thank you all for joining in the reading of the covenant. Our reading for today's service comes from Mariame Kaba's "We Do This Till We Free Us." Whether it's war, climate change, or the prison industrial complex, Americans have been conditioned to simply look away from profound harms. Years of this practice have now left us with endless wars, dying oceans, and millions of people in bondage and oppressively policed. It is time for a thorough, unflinching examination of what our society has wrought and what we have become. It is time to envision and create alternatives to the hellish conditions our society has brought into being.
Now is the time in our service when we take an offering. We know it is the gifts of all of us that help support our ability to thrive and to gather. For those attending in person, we will pass the collection plate. Please use the envelope you'll find in the pew, write your name, and indicate if your offering is part of your pledge or a donation. For those online, links and instructions will be posted in the chat. You can mail us a check or donate through the PayPal giving page on our website. Please give as generously as you can. Our offering will now be gratefully received. Please join us now in singing hymn number 1018, Come and Go With Me, in your teal hymn.
Please rise and join in.
So much like others shared during our Time for All Ages, I found COVID to be a time of a lot of isolation. In fact, I moved to the area in the midst of COVID. It was May 2020 when I got my job offer, when New York City was in every newspaper as the epicenter of the global pandemic, and a lot of my friends questioned whether that was a wise choice. I'd like to think it paid off. But 2020, I did not do much reading. I was a little bit preoccupied with the global pandemic, with moving, with getting settled into a new position in a new area. In 2021, as the time of isolation dragged on, I decided it was time to get back into my reading habit. I did this by buying perhaps, too many books, but I had a professional expense budget for the first time in my life, and I needed to read. And I bought a variety of books on different justice topics. I was looking for things that I might include for messages or for reflections or even for educational programs that I was putting together. And so I got maybe a little bit more than I could handle. Because of this, quite a few books ended up in my to-be-read pile, including the book which inspired today's message, We Do This Till We Free Us, by Mariame Kaba. This sat on my Kindle, just slowly moving further and further down and away from the top. And I kept thinking, eventually I'll read this. 2022 passed, I didn't read it. 2023 passed, and I didn't read it. But finally, in February of this year, I finally got the chance to sit down with it, and it ended up being a blessing to get the chance to engage it now at this point in my life. Mariame Kaba is an abolitionist based out of the Midwest, I believe Chicago, if I'm remembering correctly. And abolitionism is a movement with what the Unitarian Church of Staten Island is familiar with our history, and that many of our early members were abolitionists in seeking the destruction of slavery as an institution in the country. Modern day abolitionism is about the prison industrial complex and engaging in the destruction of systems that we've built up both internally and externally in our society that see punishment and see removal from society as the way to deal with any harms. And so this book ended up having both a lot about that, which was really informative for me, but it also really inspired me in thinking about community. In fact, in the book, she writes, "What can we imagine for ourselves and for the world?" And it was that quote that really stuck with me, as well as the one that was shared in today's reading, of thinking about what alternatives could we create and could we imagine for ourselves and our world. Another book that I read this year invited me to consider what was my essential mission in my life, what really motivated me in the work that I do, whether that's my career or whether that's personal engagement. And the thing that I came away with after sitting with this question was that the thing that motivated me was that I wanted to help create community. And in fact, Sarah, a few months ago, mentioned how often I said the word community, and it helped reinforce that this was something that it really motivates the way I think that I want to help create community. I want to create a place for people to feel that they can belong, and for a sense of a place that people can call home. In fact, during my clinical pastoral education, which is something you go through in seminary, a lot of times in a hospital, but sometimes in different settings, the person who was evaluating me said, the thing that motivates Ember is the search for home. And I think that this is true, that I want to create space where people can feel at home, but I also want to nurture that space and nurture others creating that space. And so as I read Mariame Kaba's We Do This Till We Free Us, I was inspired by this idea of creating community and creating space that we could imagine new and transformative ideas for ways of being. So I think that abolitionism as a movement, this movement towards abolishing the prison industrial complex, abolishing the systems that discriminate largely on race, but also seek to internalize the system of punishment that is often very common in our Western world, that, you know, bad things get punished and you get outcast. It is a little bit of our theological heritage as Unitarian Universalists coming out of Christianity, that sense of that something wrong happens, that person is cast out, and that has really dominated how we consider justice. But abolitionism, as well as other radical movements, invite us to consider new possibilities, to consider what I like to call radical dreaming. This can look like what many revolutionaries have called dual power. This will not turn into a 20-minute Marxism lecture. That can be, you know, another different Sunday. I'm coming up with lots of themes, and any time that I write a message, I come up with 10 new themes. But the concept is basically that we take the time to build our systems that are different from the oppressive and hurtful systems, that we find our ways as communities of handling problems in a more healing, more whole way, and to build the systems that we need to address those issues without engaging in the systems that oppress. So I think that our congregations can in fact be a place where we can begin to explore building this transformative community. One of the things that abolitionists talk a great deal about is the idea of transformative justice, which also has been called restorative justice in a lot of circles, and it is, you know, often kind of seen as this like very soft way of dealing with things in comparison to the way that we talk about with law and order, but that it's that both groups are consulted and the situation is tried to be understood, and a restoration is sought in a way that feels possible and healing for the community as a whole. And in fact, it reminds me of the UU Common Read, which we've been engaging with as a denomination and association this year, of on repentance and repair. That when we have something go wrong, yes, it happens to us, but it happens in our wider community. That for most things in our lives, that there is a ripple effect of any of our actions, and how can we consider the way that our actions and how we respond to and punish those actions is affecting our wider community and the things that we are involved in. So transformative justice, but also just transformative community, can be something that we can begin building in our own congregations and in our communities. In fact, in the new UUA values, so this summer, the UUA is considering rebranding, that's going to be the word that I'll go with, our UUA principles to instead be a group of 6 UUA values that are grounded in love. And one of those values is transformation. But we also see this same throughout our current UU principles. But transformation is something that has been a major part of our history. We, as a movement, do not embrace dogma in the same sense that a lot of other religious communities do, because we want to be open to new ideas and new ways of doing things. So transformation has a long history in the UU world. How can we both transform ourselves, transform our communities, and transform the world? This has been something that motivates Unitarian Universalist thinking for a long time. And we see in our principles some of these transformative values, like seeing the worth and dignity of every person, of embracing democracy and letting everybody have a voice as something that is different from the way that a lot of people do things, but also in the way that we think about our relation to the wider web of life. These are all transformative ideas because, in a sense, they're largely countercultural to a society that loves individualism, loves consuming, and likes to make people feel bad so that they will buy more products or join some new program. Instead, our principles offer us the idea that we all have worth and that we can make a difference and allow the space in our lives for these journeys, both for ourselves and for others. And I think that if we're living in truly liberated communities, that there is that ability for us to have our journeys of deep senses of meaning and those very individual journeys, but to do that together, to allow space that I can have my religious or spiritual, or even there's those who you use that are non-religious and non-spiritual, that all of us can hold the space of having those journeys in community together. So liberated community, this transformative community, allows us to explore this deep sense of meaning and our ability to connect with and care for one another. I heard so many great answers during that time for all ages about how community can lift us up and community can be this place where we can find this connection that helps us in our own lives. We are human, and I think that it is a part of human nature that we yearn to be part of community. We yearn to be with other people. Even the most introverted among us who do enjoy their alone time still find value in being with other people because it is part of our human needs to need to be with others. But in a truly liberatory community, we're not going to seek conformity when we come together and care for one another, but instead allow this space for us to live our lives, to understand each other's journeys. I think there's a temptation often to engage in universalizing. As you know, universalism is not a bad word, don't worry, we've got it in the name. But universalizing is the sense that we take our experiences, our ideas, and we project them onto the world around us. You know, projection, very big in psychology. We all do it, but we like to take our concepts and the way that we've experienced life and just assume that it's the way that everyone is experiencing life. And we even often will project it onto the past. You know, you might talk to a really young kid about a history lesson and they'll, you know, why didn't they just call them on their cell phone? Because we universalize our experience and we forget about how different other people's lives or other people's lives in the past might be. So when we care for one another in this deep liberatory way, we're not doing it in a universalizing way. We're not doing it to give our wisdom. We might share with things that we've learned, but we can acknowledge that the things that we've learned in our own journeys might not be the right thing for the other person's healing journey, might not be the right thing that they need for growth in their life. We can care for one another without trying to make everyone else's lives the same as ours. I think it's a matter of being intentionally in relationship with one another that will really transform us. And I think it means being involved in your community. Perhaps that might mean being the Worship Guild associate or the greeters. You know, this is a little bit of a volunteering sermon. Don't tell anyone. But when we're finding meaning in a community, when we're feeling cared for and supported in a community, we are going to put effort into sustaining that community, whether that's our friendships, whether that's our family relationships, whether that's chosen family. We will take the time to be involved in those relationships and in those communities to make them continue on. You don't just have a friendship and then, you know, stop talking to them for a year and just assume that they're going to be waiting for you on the other side. You nourish that friendship and that connection with involvement, and you do the same in community. But as we explore building this transformative new way of doing things, this liberated way of doing things, we have to try new things in community. In the We Do This Till We Free Us, she writes, transformative justice is comprised of creative and dynamic experiments happening across the world. For a while, I was involved in what is known as left Twitter. I can admit to, arguing with people online for fun. It's a habit that I've tried to quit by now, just quitting all of social media. But one of the things that I came away with from those interactions, and that I actually made a multi-tweet thread about, was thinking about how on the left, whether that's liberals, progressives, radicals, whatever you might call yourself, it's a little bit harder for us to get along because we are considering multiple different visions and ways that we are building the future. We're building different ideas, trying out systems, trying out ways to connect and care and work towards healing and wholeness. Whereas the conservative side of the movement, all they have to say is, we like things the way they are or the way things were. How do we get back to that? It's a little bit easier to focus and organize around preserving or regressing than it is to come together when we all have different ideas of what that liberation may look like. So we have to be open to trying new things and to have the space in community to be able to do that. Perhaps you end up calling a 8-hour, one Sunday a month visiting minister as a way of trying new things. I love this community. I've made no secret of that. And one of the things that I think I am proudest of in this community is that the Unitarian Church of Staten Island is open to trying new things, which this flexibility during this time of post-pandemic, we'll put lots of air quotes around that one, but it is a time when a lot of communities have resorted to rigidity, to the sameness, and if we are able to consider new ideas and new ways of doing things, this is work towards liberation and transformation. And I think that this liberated community also looks like right relations or respectful relations, as our covenant is called, which, as stated, I will be preaching a little bit more directly on that topic alone next month, but it's this idea of how do we consider the intent that others are bringing to a situation? Are we projecting onto people? Are we bringing our own best self for discussions and for considerations as we maybe make hard decisions or consider new possibilities? If we're truly creating transformative community and transformative connection, we're going to come with best intent and trusting each other in that work. And we had our committee on shared ministry share with us, double share there. But we actually spent some time in the committee discussing whether we wanted to be the committee on ministry or the committee on shared ministry. And it may seem an inconsequential language choice, but this shared ministry is an important concept. And it comes out of a tradition of realizing that ministry, the life of a congregation, the religious life, the liberal religious life, and any of these words that resonate with your journey, that this ministry isn't something that the minister alone does. That shared ministry means that we acknowledge that unlike the very olden days, the pre-Reformation, when it was the priest was solely in charge of religion, that it is something that we do as a community together. And this has become very important in UU circles in considering the way we do things. In fact, we have some congregations that are wholly lay-led, that there is no minister, that they may invite only guest speakers. So shared ministry is this idea that is very different from minister only. But I think that as we've come into this time of COVID, we've seen a different model that is not really shared ministry and not the minister-only sort of ministry, but what I would call the consumerist model. I think that when we moved online, that we fell into perhaps some old habits that I do think have a history in more privileged forms of religion, that we engage in consuming our religious experience, that we come and we go to our services, we get the sermon, and then we go home, and we're good. We got our sermon for the week, and we're good. And I think that as we moved into the pandemic, when the congregations were stressed, and we acknowledged that many of our volunteers and our leaders, they were all burnt out, and that things largely became, in a lot of congregations, what can the minister or the staff offer to kind of help keep moving things along? And I think even as we've emerged from lockdown and from online-only ministry, that a lot of congregations have remained stuck in this consumerist model, where It's what can being involved in a congregation bring to me, and not what can I bring as part of the congregation? What can we do as a whole? And I think that these are very different models from shared ministry, that shared ministry encourages us to consider the ways that we can belong together and do this work of volunteering together, that only working together can our community truly exist, whether that's our board, our worship guild, our volunteer greeters, our hospitality, our tech team, that we exist by doing this all together. And that is one of the things that I love about this community, is seeing the way that we all contribute little small parts towards the success of the Unitarian Church of Staten Island. And I think that this is a lesson towards this liberated, transformative community, that if we work together, we can build a better world. As much as the brands might like us to believe, we can't consume our ways to a better world. No matter how nice the aesthetic of a website is, no matter how teal and gray and light brown the clothes or the kids' toys are, labeled earth-friendly, that no amount of consuming is going to help us create a better world. It is in fact only together that we can begin building this better world, that we can only do that in community and in supporting one another and in being vulnerable and in allowing each other this space for our journeys and for this healing. Because we do this together. We do this by doing our parts, by holding that space for one another, by being community for one another. We create and hold this safe space so that we can have a more whole experience of ourselves. We are enriched by having experiences where we come to understand others' lives and others' journeys. That is enriching for us. And we dream of this better future by building it, by trying it, by considering new ideas and new ways of doing things and new ways of belonging. And we can build this better future in community by taking care of us. So I encourage us to embrace transformation in our lives, embrace possibility, and embrace that we are always growing, but that we do that best by growing together. Thank you.
Please stand as you are able and join in singing hymn number 311. Let it be a dance in your teal hymnal.
Gray hymnal.
I'm sorry, gray hymnal, yes, 311.
Music say the words that fill the sky.
I invite you to join me in extinguishing our chalice. You can find the affirmation in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment. With these, we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our closing words are by Jennifer Castro in an article called Moving Beyond Normativity, which was found in the book, The Sandbox Revolution. I want my children to recognize that wholeness is and what it's not. It does not mean having it all together all the time or always being happy. Wholeness means that you can see yourself as a complete person who holds wisdom, power, and strength, as well as fallibility, blind spots, and weakness. You bring your whole self to the places you go, in the interactions you engage in. You give yourself grace when you fail, and you care for yourself through boundaries and other self-care practices.